What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Baby Prospects and the 64-team 2024 NCAA Division I Baseball Championship Tournament has been announced. We now know all 64 teams. There are some controversies. Obviously, some teams feeling like they got completely screwed. A team like Florida from the SEC didn't have the greatest season. They are in. Lots of teams like Cal on the outside looking in, pissed off, and even a team that won their actual conference tournament and didn't get in, even though that's supposed to be an automatic qualifier. But in this particular case, Tarleton State won the WAC tournament, but are not eligible to be in the NCAA tournament because of rules regarding the reclassification from Division II to Division I, and they are just about done with the 4-year requirement to wait before you can be eligible for the tournament, and it just didn't quite, this wasn't the year. So next year, if they win the tournament, they'll be in, but Tarleton State kind of feel like that's a jacked up rule, to be quite honest. I mean, you're in, you won your tournament, you should be in the freaking tournament. And there's a lot of arguments going on about that, but that rule definitely needs to be changed. Tarleton State won the tournament and did not get in. Grand Canyon, who did have a much better season, will get in. They had the best record in the WAC, so they're going to be in. And obviously the top seeds are going to be in. Kentucky, Texas A&M, North Carolina, Arkansas, Clemson, Georgia, Florida State, Oklahoma, NC State, Oklahoma State, Virginia, Arizona, UC Santa Barbara, Oregon State, and East Carolina, all in the tournament, as well as a bunch of some new teams are in as well. High Point, Niagara, and Northern Kentucky making their first appearances in the NCAA Division I Baseball Championship. And Evansville, a great team. I checked them out this year, put up some videos on them. The Purple Aces making their first appearance since 2006. And they got some solid players as well we'll be talking about here. I'm not going to talk about every one of these matchups, but we'll just kind of run through them. I'll give you some thoughts on some of the underdogs who I think have a good shot, but want to shout out every team that's made it to the tournament as we get ready for this. It's going to be a fun one here. Georgia, they are going to be hosting. Georgia obviously stacked. Charlie Condon comes to mind, and it's just an unbelievable team here. Army, West Point. Shout out to Army. Okay, Army veteran right here. But yeah, so that's going to be an interesting matchup. Army's got some pitching. They do have a guy, I think his name is Matthew Ronnebaum, who threw 8 shutout innings against Navy last week. That's going to be interesting to see how he does, assuming that he'll start this game. But Georgia, of course, I mentioned Charlie Condon, Corey Collins, and just a ton of hitting on that team and some solid pitching. They're going to be the favorites. UNC made it, so that's University of North Carolina, Wilmington. So they are in it as well. They got some good guys. They got Tanner Thatch, who crushed 27 bombs this year. Trevor Marsh and some other guys like that. So Georgia Tech, obviously, also Matthew Ellis, Drew Burris, and that's going to be a fun matchup right there. I think Georgia Tech probably gets the edge there, but I actually, personally, that's what I'm saying, like as far as the favorite goes. But my prediction, I got a surprise one right off the bat for this regional in Athens. I'm going to say that the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, UNCW, surprise underdog, takes it and moves on to Super Regional. Just throwing that out there. But Georgia, clearly the heavy favorite in this one, I would think. Also, looks like the second regional here on the list over at College Station, Texas A&M. Very much stacked team. They'll be hosting, obviously, Braden Montgomery, transferred over from Stanford. Jace Laviolette, also around 28 home runs this year. Great pitching staff. Ryan Prager. Grambling is solid. They won their tournament, the SWAC tournament. They got good offense. They got hitting machines like Kyle Walker. Not as much home run power. And I just don't know if they'll be able to hang with the Aggies. We'll see how they do in the tournament. Obviously, it's double elimination, so even if you lose that game, they'll have second life. But it's going to be tough for them. This is a tough 3 teams that Grambling has. So you got Louisiana, not LSU, but Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. LSU is also in it. We'll talk about them in a second, but Louisiana is very good as well. Really good pitching. All 3 of their starters have ERAs around 3. Chase Morgan is one of them. They got just every time there's a starter out there, it seems like he's a solid starter, and more than solid, just really good. So I love Louisiana, but Texas big powerhouse, Jalen Flores and Jared Thomas and all those great pitchers that we've seen in the last couple of years. So Texas 35-22, probably going to be favorites. But I think Texas A&M, just too much talent on that team to pick anyone else for me. I think they'll end up winning the tournament, but this is going to be a great battle all around. You got LSU. Obviously, LSU is the defending champs. Got their poster behind me right there. Autographed team poster, the powerhouse. Can't really see it, but LSU, just too much talent right there. I mean, Wofford is good. Obviously, every team that's here has earned their way here. And it's going to be interesting to see. But when you got Tommy White, Jared Jones, Luke Holman, Gage Jump, LSU's just stacked with talent. And Wofford has a nice lineup. They can hit. They have at least 5 or 6 guys who are hitting 340 and above. So they have a solid team. I just don't know if they have the pitching to deal with LSU and some of these other teams like North Carolina, who have Vance Honeycutt and company, and Long Island, who was in the tournament again. They were in there a couple years ago. They know how to play fundamental baseball, get on base, make stuff happen. They're a tough team. LSU is the team right here that's going to be the favorites. That's the team I will predict to take this and move on to super regionals, but it's going to be a fun matchup there. Virginia taking on Penn, and Mississippi State against St. John's. Virginia, I love. They got just Griff O'Farrell, Henry Ford, ton of talent, good defense, solid Penn. Speaking of Penn, who have some threats of their own. They got a guy named, I think, Wyatt Hensler, who hit about 22, 23 home runs. So good team there. Going to be a fun matchup. I think Virginia, I would have to take Virginia in this one. Vanderbilt, Coastal Carolina, Clemson against High Point. High Point making their first appearance in the NCAA tournament. That's really exciting for them. They're going to go right up against Clemson, though. That's going to be a tough one. And Vanderbilt, I mean, that if Vanderbilt wins this matchup, we could have a Vanderbilt-Clemson matchup, just kind of what I expect. And I think I'll take Clemson to take it. I know they're probably the favorite. They got the better record. They're the number 1 seed. I think that the offense is just through the roof for them. I talked about them preseason and Vanderbilt. They were both in my top 10 before the season. But Clemson, Cam Canarella, and all the guys they got on that team, both is going to be a fun one right there for sure. UC Irvine against Nichols and Oregon State against Tulane. I'm not extremely familiar with a lot of these guys on these teams. Obviously, Oregon State is a team that I've followed, and they're completely stacked with talent for sure. Arkansas against Southeast Missouri State. Louisiana Tech against Kansas State. You have East Carolina taking on Evansville. I'm going to be rooting for Evansville, underdogs. I've been following them this year, and they got a guy I really like, Mark Schallenberger. This dude can get on base like no one's business, although he's getting hit by a bunch of pitches, but he's got a great eye and huge power. Just a big bat right there, and he, I'm hoping, goes at some point in the MLB draft this year, but look out for Mark Schallenberger and Evansville, the Purple Aces, be taking on East Carolina. Wake Forest against VCU. Obviously with pitchers like Chase Burns, and then just overall, like, Wake Forest is not a team that has like 5 or 6 like power hitters that are just crushing home runs left and right. It's just a team with a bunch of dudes who can hit, who can get on base, who don't strike out a lot, and just threat after threat after threat. And that's why going into the season, Wake Forest was my number 1 team. So I do think that they're probably the favorites in this matchup right here. I'm going to be rooting for the Purple Aces, but I think ultimately I have to pick. If I had to predict, I'm going to say Wake Forest moves on in that one. I think I forgot to pick up here, but I'm going to go with Louisiana Tech here in the Fayetteville series. Knoxville is going to be a fun one. Southern Miss against Indiana, and Tennessee, the unstoppable Tennessee against Northern Kentucky. Could they get upset and get knocked out by any of these 3 teams? If it was one of them, I really love Indiana. Haven't watched Southern Miss and Northern Kentucky too much, so I don't want to say much, but I really liked what I saw with Indiana this year. And I would say if there was one team to knock off Tennessee, I'll say it's Indiana, but I would take, if I had to predict, Tennessee is the team to move on there. You have the Lexington Regional, Kentucky against Western Michigan, Indiana State against Illinois. I'll take Kentucky there. Duke, who thought that they should be hosting, had an incredible year. Better record than Oklahoma, but Oklahoma hosting in Norman. And they'll be taking on Oral Roberts, who are just a super exciting team that swept the Summit tournament Oral Roberts, I love this team. They made it to the College World Series last year. They picked up more talent. Some good transfers came in this year. They lost a couple guys to the draft, but absolutely love their talent. Oklahoma's good too. They have Jackson Nicholas. They got a lot of guys. Easton Carmichael, and some good pitching as well. I'm really excited to see what Oral Roberts can do in this regional with guys like Drew Stahl, with guys like Holden Breeze, with Jacob Hall in that rotation, who was the Summit League Pitcher of the Year. Look out for Oral Roberts. I'm taking them to surprise. Duke fans are pissed. UConn fans, UConn's got a great team. I'm taking Oral Roberts to take it. The Golden Eagles will be moving on to Super Regionals. Yeah, South Carolina against James Madison, NC State against Bryant. Some interesting teams here. I would take NC State, and San Diego against Oregon. UC Santa Barbara against my team right there, Fresno State. Love Fresno State. I think they could surprise, but I love the guys that UC Santa Barbara has. They have so much talent, not only offensively, but Ryan Gallagher, one of the best pitchers in college baseball. He never gets talked about. I don't know if he'll get drafted. I think he will get drafted pretty high this year, but we'll see. And they also have just a ton of really good offensive players, threats all over the field. I'll be rooting for Fresno State because I'm a fan of the Bulldogs, but UC Santa Barbara is my pick there to win that game. As for the entire regional, Oregon's going to be tough, and San Diego as well. This is going to be a really tough one altogether. I'm going to predict UC Santa Barbara to take it, but it'll be a close one. In Stillwater, we have Nebraska against Florida. Florida, a team that like 28 and 27. People are pissed they even made it in. Teams like Cal, like seriously, Cal didn't get in. They were a lot better than Florida, it seems like, but I mean, how many SEC teams are getting in? But I digress. That's a big argument going on. I do think Nebraska has a much better record, but obviously, yes, Florida did take on some incredible talent in the SEC. Understandable that Nebraska is not going to necessarily be better just because of the record, but I think it'll be a good matchup. In Oklahoma State, though, #1 seed for a reason. Oh my gosh, Carson Benj, and just a unbelievable offense, great pitching. They got Brian Holiday, who's just like a Greg Maddux style. He just knows how to hit his spots, and several other solid starters who will get drafted this year, and a lineup full of major threats right there. A couple of guys, I slipping on their name, but Oklahoma State has an absolute stacked roster of guys who can just rake, who can absolutely hit. Tallahassee, we have Florida State against Stetson, Alabama against UCF. UCF had a great season. They get in. Congratulations to Central Florida. Here, I have to go Florida State, but Alabama, look out for them, obviously. Huge threat from the SEC. Great pitching. And the Alabama's pitching might be what gets them through this regional, but I'll take Florida State. And then at Tucson, we have DBU against West Virginia and Arizona against Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon was great this year. Didn't win their tournament, though. I was actually rooting for Abilene Christian. I think they have an incredible team. Unfortunately, they didn't win the tournament. And Dallas Baptist against West Virginia. J.J. Weatherholt comes to mind. And a great team. They were expected to be even better than they were. J.J. Weatherholt was hurt for, I don't know, about a month because of a hammy. And then Dallas Baptist, they got some good pop, good power hitter. And Jay Grant is a guy who's hit about 20-plus home runs this year for them. Solid pitching, but I'm going to say West Virginia takes this regional and moves on. So just some of my thoughts right there on who I would predict. Obviously, just you could ignore that. Those are just some of them are underdogs. You know, you never know it is baseball, and you never know what's going to happen. I can't wait to find out who moves on to Super Regionals. It's a lot of fun matchups here, and maybe I'll do another preview then. It gets a little more clear what the College World Series is going to look like. But 64 teams are in. I'll be rooting hard for some of these teams. I really like Oral Roberts a lot. I hope they make it back to the College World Series. We'll see. Obviously, I'm rooting for Fresno State as a fan. It's a personal fan. Oklahoma Sooners are really good, but they're taking on Oral Roberts. So if Oklahoma makes it past this regional, look out for them, and Oklahoma State as well. Wake Forest, talent everywhere. And of course, can't ignore the champions, LSU. But just a lot of good teams. Texas A&M completely stacked. A lot of great teams in the tournament this year. And a big shout out to a team I think is going to surprise some people. They are ranked number one seed, but UC Santa Barbara, I think, have a chance to get to head off to Omaha as well. So lots of great teams, lots of talent. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you're new here, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. Go check out my main MLB channel as well, where I talk Major League Baseball, San Francisco Giants, and more at Hum Baby Baseball. But this here's Hum Baby Prospects, where we focus on college baseball and a little bit of high school baseball as well, and prospects for the future of the big leagues. But really excited about this year's tournament. Let me know what you guys think. We'll talk to you next time.